At the time of this recording, Tree's Company is just a small nothing channel that only recently had videos break 1,000 views. Thanks again everybody for watching my review videos. So what would be the best thing for me to review next to get people watching and grow my channel? Could it be the newly released disaster that is the Marvels? The second season of Loki that nobody is talking about? Maybe I should react to the new Avatar: The Last Airbender live action trailer. All of these would surely be a much smarter choice for me to review than what I actually decided to do. That's right, I decided to watch and talk about the relaunch of Frasier. When it is announced a beloved character is coming back to a movie or show, we tend to cringe and go, here we go again. Can't think of anything new and original, and more likely they're just going to belittle this beloved character and turn them into a joke. And this was my first reaction when I heard about Frasier coming back. But the more I thought about it, the more I thought, this one actually makes some sense and could be done. When Frasier was first introduced in Cheers, he was in his early 30s, so he had experience in his profession. He was ready to settle down, but he was still relatively young. He was finding his place with the Cheers gang, and as time went on, his sophisticated nature started to become more the typical Boston barfly. And at the beginning of the original Frasier, he was like 41 years old. He was trying to get back to his higher class roots. He was still looking to settle down, as he is doomed to forever be, and he wanted to get back to living a more civilized way of life. But his father moves in with him and keeps throwing a wrench in his plans with his, blue-collar ways. In the relaunch, Reboot, whatever it is technically called, this version of Frasier, he's in his 60s or 70s, it isn't made very clear. Anyways, he's now the old father trying to reconnect and live with his son. It's like a role reverse from the original show. Except for the fact that, he's still a high-class Ivy League Frasier, and his son Freddie is the blue-collar firefighter that he clashes with. This is a logical next step for the character of Frasier. I will say, I wish the character was a little younger. He was a little old in the original Frasier for some of those stories and storylines, and Kelsey Grammer doesn't really act like a 70-year-old in the show. He's still searching for love, and that can make it a little awkward when you think about age differences. But nevertheless, the overall story makes sense as a next stage in life, and probably close to what I would have done if I was asked to make a Frasier reboot. Also, if there was someone that I would trust to protect his lifelong character legacy, make a show for the show and not for the message, as the drinker likes to say it, it would be Kelsey Grammer. Now, it isn't hard to find out this man's personal politics, and while I'll say he is an actor I'm more politically aligned with, that doesn't affect his work. He doesn't push his own agendas in movies and shows and characters. I wouldn't want him to. He just tries to entertain, and that's why I can still be interested or even excited for what he turns up in or what he's involved with. Before I go any further, it should be said that I liked the first 6 episodes that I've seen so far, and if you have any desire to watch the show and not hear spoilers, then like and subscribe and stop the video now. Since this show is more like a comedy from the late 90s, and every episode is mostly a standalone story with some loose arching through line, I won't be breaking down every episode I have watched up to this point. Instead, I will go over the series, kind of through line setup and the first episode put in place, and then break down my thoughts on the acting, characters, comedy, and feel-good moments. The new Frasier series opens with Frasier returning to Boston after his father's funeral. That's right, he's back in Boston, baby. He's there to see his son Freddie, who was not at the funeral. He's trying to figure out why he wasn't there and to reconnect with him. In the first scene, we learn that Frasier went from his radio show in the OG Frasier to doing a like Steve Harvey, Ellen DeGeneres, Dr. Oz kind of show for 14 years. And he just retired that show. Also, we meet David and Alan. David is Niles and Daphne's kid, all grown up and attending Harvard. Alan is Frasier's old friend from his college days and a professor of psychology at Harvard. We learn that Niles and Daphne are still alive, that David is not doing well in college in terms of making friends, and that Freddie attended Harvard but dropped out. All of this we learn in just a few minutes in this airport setting. Then Frasier goes from the airport to his son's apartment, and there we meet Freddie, who's all grown up and now a firefighter. Freddie clearly does not want his father there, and while he's trying to get Frasier to leave, we meet Eve, who they tell Frasier is Freddie's girlfriend. But we learn very quickly that she isn't, and that she also has a baby. Frasier leaves and is talking to Alan about what just happened at Frey's apartment. And that's when we meet Olivia, the head of Harvard's psychology department. She asks Frasier if he wants to teach at Harvard, and he declines, saying he's just there to reconcile with his son, and he's leaving the next day to do research in France. By the end of the scene, Frasier decides he's going to be cooking dinner for Freddie and try to hash things out with him. Of course, everything goes wrong in classic Frasier fashion, as every character in the show shows up for dinner, all with specific motives. Olivia and Alan are trying to recruit Frasier to teach at Harvard still. Frasier's trying to bond with his son. Freddie's trying to lie about what kind of relationship he has with Eve and her baby. And Dave is just kind of there because, well, he wants to be a good nephew to Frasier. Once Frasier finally discovers the baby, he is thrilled that he is a grandpa. But it soon comes out that it's not Eve and Freddie's baby, but that the father was Freddie's best friend and fellow firefighter, who died tragically in a fire. Freddie is living with Eve to help take care of them and to save some money. We also learn that Freddie didn't go to the funeral because he doesn't feel like he had a family anymore after Martin's death. This is thanks to Frasier and his falling out over him dropping out of Harvard, and some other things. This makes Frasier realize he hasn't been the best father and makes him want to reconnect with the son even more. So he accepts the job at Harvard, buys the building his son lives in, and moves in next door. And of course he wants Freddie to live with him, so they can bond and Eve can be alone with the baby. But they're still right next door, so they can help. This completes the live-in dad role reversal from the original show and kind of sets up everything for the series. This series feels like it is pulled straight from the 90s. It is as sitcom as a sitcom can be, and with that style of show and comedy comes a certain style of acting with it. There are few actors out there that can pull off that kind of timing, be serious enough, not too over the top, really make the audience feel like, yeah, this is just the crazy world they live in, and they play the role nice and straight, and just keep hitting you with non-stop humor and jokes. Only to, at the end, pull out a masterful, heartfelt performance for nice message, lesson learned, good moment at the end. Kelsey Grammer has always been a master of this kind of acting. So him stepping back into Frasier Crane, a character he's played for over 20 years, feels natural. Like he just never stopped. I have no complaints on his performance whatsoever. He is as great as he ever was. The rest of the cast could use some work though. The actors who play Olivia, Eve, and Freddie, they got better with each episode, but they're definitely no Kelsey Grammer, David Hyde Pierce, or John Mahoney. It's like they kind of knew they were in a sitcom. They're doing those weird poses for laughter. They got a little too over the top reactions. And there are some scenes where the performances are just kind of cringe, for lack of a better word. It's definitely no award-winning, you'll go down in history for this character kind of performances. But nevertheless, you do see improvement with each episode. And as the actors get more comfortable with his characters and are maybe given a little more to work with in the script, then they'll be better. The actor who plays Alan is clearly a seasoned actor, and he does a better job, but he is more just kind of comic relief than anything, and can be a little bit of a one-tone character. But if they do more with him, like they did with episode 5, you can really be a fun and interesting characters, and you can see more of the actor's range. Overall, it's hard to compare the performance to Kelsey Grammer, who has just had so much history with his character. But there is room for improvement, even though they still did a good enough job to get you sucked into the show and having a good time. The character of Frasier has not really changed since the old show. He is still the same guy. He's quick-witted, slightly self-absorbed, and clever about everything, but his own life and problems. He still boasts about his money, fame, Ivy League college, and all his fancy stuff. He whines about his problems and points out when people are being stupid, only to then fall for the same delusions as them.
You know, this is what's wrong with academia. Look at the two of you, acting like a couple of giddy children because of an invitation for some pretentious, elitist clique that just has...
But he does ultimately just care about his family and friends. He's always fun and interesting to watch. In the original show, Martin was the number 2 to Frasier. In this series, that person is Freddie. Freddie's a charismatic blue-collar firefighter that had a lot in common with his grandfather. He is close with his fellow firemen, and he cares about Eve and her baby, but his relationship with Frasier and David, his actual family, is strained and goes from not really wanting anything to do with them to more embarrassed of them.
So, this is why you didn't ask your fireman buddies to help you move. Because you're too... Oh, what was that word you used to describe how I feel about you, when actually it describes how you feel about me?
It's embarrassed.
It's embarrassed. Hope you're hungry, because this irony is delicious.
Freddie has some vanity about his looks and is clearly smooth with the ladies, but he also clearly has a thing for Eve. Best way I can describe Freddie as a whole is that he's a mix of Martin's personality with kind of Frasier's knowledge and brain.
Tight Su defeated the Mongolian rulers, which led to the Ming Dynasty. Correct.
For the rest of the supporting cast, Dave is pretty much just a young and naive Niles. He isn't used much in the show, and he's more comic relief when needed, more than anything. Alan is a selfish, childish old man. He loves scotch and not doing any work. He's a bit of a one-trick pony character, but he gives that Ivy League back and forth that Niles used to give the original Frasier. Eve is the fun, not the sharpest pencil in the box, friend of everyone. She's the one that can be sassy and poke fun of all the smart people. And she's the potential love interest of Freddie. Olivia is a quirky intellectual and the boss of Frasier. She wants him to help transform the psychology department at Harvard to make her look good. She dreams about being the president of the college one day so she can beat her sister who's trying to do the same thing at Yale. I like all these characters. They're a little shallow, but they're mostly there to help prop up Frasier. There could be more added to them to give them more character and depth, and I hope they do so if they get more seasons. I liked them all, and I even liked Eve and Olivia. I think they could be really good characters. The actors need to tone it down a bit, and they need to get a little more from the scripts, and both of them are diverse actors. And I love that that was not brought up in the show. They're just characters that have been written for the story. There's no messaging or politics involved with them, or any of the characters for that matter. I kept waiting for Olivia to do a speech about how it was hard to get her position at Harvard because she's a black woman, or hear how Eve is a diverse single mom that needs no help all the time. But those moments never happened. They were just people. They did ask for help, they had clear motivations, they had understandable relationships with everybody, and they just fit well with the show. This show is first and foremost a situational comedy, the same as the original Frasier. The ideas are still somewhat fresh and new, and the audience is hit with joke after joke after joke. Sometimes it's a wacky situation, sometimes overdramatic reactions, and sometimes it's a quick-witted one-liner. It is the same humor as the original show, and for me, it still works. I still smiled and occasionally even laughed out loud. I loved it when they did references to the old shows. They even made fun of them sometimes.
How does it feel being back in Boston?
Mixed emotions, honestly. I'm not sure I was ever my best self here. I may have spent a little too much time at a certain bar.
You know, it's funny. The thing about me is I've always wanted to fit in somewhere, you know? I mean, even when I was back in Boston, I used to be a regular at a bar, and yet...
Nobody knew your name.
It was just enough nostalgia that actually had some substance to it too. Episode 6 even has a lot of the same plot structures as a number of old Frasier episodes combined. Like the episode where they throw a singles party and they all go after the same woman, and the one where Niles is a fake chef at their fake restaurant. And when Frasier tries to date 2 girls at once. It combines all these stories and tweaks all the elements for those episodes so Frasier can still screw it up and get in his own way for a healthy relationship. All of this just to set up the punchline for him to go,
Still got it.
I was worried this type of comedy might have become stale to me. Afraid I wouldn't find it funny anymore. But I was pleasantly surprised when I found myself laughing. Like the original Frasier and many of my other favorite comedies, at the end of most of the episodes they have a heartfelt moment that shows what the character learned from that week's adventure and maybe share a good life lesson for everyone. Most of them ending up being about family or growing as a person. I thought most of the first 6 episodes had great moments like this. From the first one, where Freddie goes through some of his grief about his firefighter friend who died, to Frasier talking about how he doesn't want his legacy to be about his old show he did for 14 years, as well as Frasier being afraid of Freddie dying in a fire like his friend. All real-world issues most people can identify with or understand no matter what political view you have. I always love a good laugh-filled show that can break it down just a little and have a nice heartfelt character-driven speech at the end. And maybe even make the audience feel something too. Well, that's all I have to say about the new Frasier so far. It's the same Frasier with some good changes to kind of fit the character's age and stage in life. It's still a funny, heartfelt show, and I recommend everybody check it out. Maybe watch the old Frasier and Cheers. Although I feel this isn't required for the show, I do think it will help and just be an enjoyable watch. Thanks for watching this long. Please like and subscribe, and I will see you next time. Bye.